Social and political stratification. Here are the reporters for this chapter. 4 picks in 1 word. If you know what the word is, basing on the set of pictures that are given, please enter your answer in the chat box. We highly encourage everyone to participate. Starting with the first set of pictures. What do you see? What do they all have in common? We'll give you a clue. The first letter is P and the fourth letter is E. We'll give you 10 seconds to enter your answer in this Google Meets chat box. The answer is poverty. So let's proceed to the second slide. The hints are, it has 10 letters, and the first letter is I, the fourth letter is Q, and the last letter is Y. Again, everyone is encouraged to type their answers in the chat box. What do you think is the one word that these pictures portray? The answer is inequality. And for the last slide, it has 8 letters. The first letter is D, third letter is V, and the last letter is N. What do you think is the word? The answer is division. Congratulations to everyone who got it right, and thank you so much to everyone who participated. So here is Liza Liauder to start our discussion.
Big question. Where does the poverty begin and is there an end to it? First subtopic. Poverty, social and political stratification. Notice that the countries are categorized from undeveloped, such as Sudan, Chad, and etc., developing and developed countries. Even in undeveloped and developing countries, there are the problem of poverty, but it is more prominent in undeveloped countries. What is the problem of poverty and social inequality? Poverty refers to the lack of access to natural and societal resources, such as, according to the United Nations 1998, is the lack of basic necessities like food, no access to clean water, not being able to go to school or hospital. Poverty also means being powerless, unequal, and exclusion of individuals. In other words, to those who doesn't have the opportunities to improve their conditions. For example, if you compare the status of persons in the Philippines, there is an inequality or a gap between poverty, such as using connections to speed up the process or be first in line. Diba nakabantay mo, especially during this pandemic, kay makita dyan nimo ang differences sa impact sa low-income families to those who are privileged enough. Aside from that, katong mga nawala ng trabaho such as street vendors, stores clerk, and etc. Grabe kadako ang impact sa pandemic sa ila since they will need to find a way to find new source of income. It is not the world does not have enough resources to cover the needs of the entire population, but the problem is some people have more than enough resources to last their entire lives while others live by the day. Poverty is not just an isolated case nor a one-sided social problem, but it is a multidimensional issue that hinders sustainable growth and development. When can we say that there is absolute poverty? As said in the previous slides, that poverty is characterized by severe deprivation of basic necessities of life, such as tong ingon namo, food, water, katong mga basic needs sa jud siya. So the idea of absolute poverty is that there should be a minimum standard of living. The current standard in the poverty line set by the World Bank is $1.25 per day. Below this threshold are considered to be experiencing absolute poverty. But poverty differs country to country. For example, compare Philippines to Switzerland. Both of these countries were considered as developing countries in the 19th century. But today, both has a big difference, such as the poverty rate in the Philippines is much higher than Switzerland. For me, I think that why Philippines has been left behind since there is a low to moderate economy growth for the past 40 years. There are many possible solutions in order to solve and address the problem of poverty, to which according to UN 2013, the reports of extreme poverty rates have been cut in half since 1990. But, in the same study, that there are still around 1.2 billion people living in absolute poverty. So, mabantayan ninyo kay sa different na mga claims such as the UN o gutong mga different studies kay different jud sila. So, usay na siya pagka-bias and kanang dili kay siya accurate.
Rural poverty is usually associated with people living outside cities and towns, usually in agricultural setting, while urban poverty is closely linked with cities and towns with big population. Although different in scope and scale, rural and urban poverty are commonly grounded in the following characteristic: lack of access to economic resources, quality education, social services, basic living essential, powerlessness, social exclusion, and vulnerability to natural disaster. According to the United Nations 2013, the largest segment of world's poorest population is living in rural environments across Asia, Africa, and Latin America.
Some of the most important concerns of these people include land tenure, water supply, livestock, access to markets and trade liberalization, climate change, gender and rural financing and institutions.
Meanwhile, the prevalence of the urban poor is common among the megacities of developing countries such as Brazil, Colombia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Indonesia, China, India, Bangladesh, and Philippines.
One of the most widespread and important indicators of urban poverty are the number of slum dwellers, or informal settlers in any given city or town.
The slums of the world particularly reflect poverty rates because of these settlements that access to food, water, electricity, healthcare, sanitation, and other basic services are disturbingly limited. Poverty incidence in 2014 increased in 25.8%. Poverty incidence refers to the count of poor in the given period. So, what is inflation?
Inflation is defined as sustained increase in a general level of prices for goods and services. It is measured as an annual percentage increase. As inflation rises, every rupee you own buys a smaller percentage of a good service.
Food inflation in 2013 is 2.4%, 2014 6.6%, while non-food inflation in 2013 is 2.3% and 2014 is 2.7%. Also, price of rice is indicator of food inflation, so decrease of rice price could lead to lower poverty incidence. Inflation affects the cost of living things such as transport, electricity, and food. And it can also impact interest rates of savings accounts, the performance of companies, and in turn, share prices. Poverty in the Philippines, may it be in rural or urban setting, is widespread across the different sectors of the society. The National Statistical Coordination Board 2013 estimates the poverty incident rate of 22.3% during the first semester of 2012. This means that the estimated 96 million population of the country, around 20 million, are living in poverty.
The poorest sectors in the Philippines include fishermen, farmers, children, self-employed and unpaid family workers, women, youth, migrant and formal sector, senior citizens and individuals residing in urban areas. Of these sectors, fishermen and farmers are considered to be two of the poorest, most vulnerable, neglected, and deprived. The latter is an agency created by virtue of Republic Act 8425, also known as Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act, an act institutionalizing the Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Program, creating for the purpose the National Anti-Poverty Commission, defining its power and functions, and for other purposes. Together with national and local governing bodies, these agencies ensure that poverty alleviation programs and policies are formulated and implemented to address the needs of the different sectors within the country.
Programs in alleviating poverty. Poverty alleviation programs are projects that are set and promoted by the government and private institutions all have one thing in common: the goal to provide better living conditions for the poorest segments of society. As there is no single formula or solid plan to ensure that poverty will be eradicated, alleviation programs focus on providing the poor with opportunities to gain access to the goods and services that they do not have. These initiatives could either be long-term or short-term in nature, depending on the aspect of poverty that is being addressed. For instance, livelihood projects and education development are supposed to run for a relatively long period of time compared to a feeding program or a medical mission. The goal of the former is to provide income security for the people and better job opportunities in the future, while the latter aims to provide temporary relief or solution to hunger and health issues. These are the common poverty alleviation programs in the Philippines. First is the microfinance for small-scale livelihood and enterprise project. Second is the community-driven development initiatives. Third is the promotion of education, science, and technology. Fourth is the population management and the field resources sustainability projects. These programs may be spearheaded by the government or private individuals and corporations. As such, these initiatives have varying degrees of effectiveness and efficiency. Success rates are largely dependent upon internal and external factors that comes into play. For instance, a poverty alleviation program that has a huge amount of funding could fail if the target sector would not cooperate. On the other hand, a project with relatively small funding but has tremendous support from all the stakeholders may create positive results and may even lead to drastic changes among the lives of the affected sectors.
Conditional Cash Transfer Program. The basic concept behind this poverty relief program is quite simple and straightforward. The government or any commercial organization would distribute cash to families living in absolute or relative poverty if they met specified rules and criteria. These criteria vary by country but typically include mandatory education for children, frequent health checkups, participation in development seminars, and other activities in exchange for money. For example, if a family wants to participate in the program, they must send all of their children to school and attend development seminars before receiving a monthly allowance from the implementing agency. The goal is to provide financial assistance to families who are struggling to meet their basic needs and help them to break the cycles of poverty. Many countries around the world depend largely on conditional cash transfer program. In the Philippines, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, implements a conditional cash transfer program known as the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, which is aimed at children aged 0 to 14. According to DSWD 2013, the program aims including giving temporary cash assistance to the poor and offering opportunity for these children to enhance their education and health conditions so that they can obtain suitable jobs and provide a brighter future for their family.
There's actually a big debate going on regarding the effectiveness of conditional cash transfer programs in terms of providing long-term solutions to poverty. Some argue that it only supports the culture of poverty, while according to the proponents of such arguments, conditional cash transfer initiatives creates the notion that poor people can always depend on others to help them in life. Whatever they need would be supplied by an endless stream of organizations or institutions without much effort on their part. It also reinforces the idea that they cannot help themselves, hence they need to constantly depend on others. These beliefs are countered by those who say that instead of looking at conditional cash transfer programs as doled out, it should be considered as something that would empower the poor. The Human Poverty Index is a measurement tool that uses indicators such as lifespan, education, and access to public and private resources in order to represent the extent of poverty in a country. The budget standard approach is a poverty line that is calculated based on goods and services that are considered as representative of the basic standards of living in a particular country. The food ratio method is a poverty line that is set based on the proportion of money that people spend on basic necessities such as food, clothing, and shelter. Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs, is a blueprint of development goals and efforts to meet the needs of the world's poorest people by 2015, set by the United Nations. Social exclusion is a term that is used to describe the concept of marginalization or social disadvantage wherein people are systemically isolated from gaining access to resources.
Kyung Lau from CNN made an article titled Garbage Chicken, a grain staple for Manila's poor, which brought the world's attention to the reality of hunger problems in the Philippines. The article talked about pagpag, which are leftover food taken from trash. The literal meaning of pagpag in Tagalog is to clean or shake off dirt, which is the act used when gathering the leftovers. Pagpag is a direct result of extreme poverty in the Philippines. Whether they like it or not, people from places like Tondo, which is one of the poorest slums in the Philippines, do this as means for survival. Pagpag also comes with a lot of health risk. One of the issues faced by Philippine Community Funds, or PCF's Health and Nutrition Manager, Maria Sarmiento, when they first opened their school, which catered to the poverty-stricken children in Tondo.
Other forms of social and political inequalities are gender inequality, ethnic minorities, and persons with disability inequality. So what is gender inequality? It is the process by which men and women are not treated equally. Gender inequality is still a major issue faced by the whole world. Girls and women across different countries of the world still face discrimination. So examples are women in Northern Africa. They hold less than 1 in 5 paid jobs in non-agricultural sector, and girls in Sub-Saharan Africa, Oceania, and Western Asia face barriers in entering primary and secondary school. Countries, women are not allowed to drive, vote, go everywhere without chaperone, express their creativity, and restrictions that actually limit the things that they can do. This is not included in the material, but here are some powerful women in the Philippines. So we have Heidelin Diaz. She is the first Filipina who won the gold medal in Olympics. And we have Miriam Defensor Santiago. She's the first Filipina and the first Asian from a developing country to be elected in United Nations. Wala ka kabalo no nga, ang kanaday mo ginakatawan nga babae karon mao day ang next president, di ba? So let us treat everyone equally. regarding their genders. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals have goal number 5. It is to achieve and empower women and girls, and to end all forms of discrimination against women and girls. So note, gender inequality may only be achieved if everybody would be true to its cause and to be willing to do their share of responsibility in achieving the goal. I believe girls also feel discrimination in their home. Kay we Filipinos, mas naanda na nato nga bayo jud ang magbihok sa balay. Pero gender is not the basis sa household chores. Kay, for example, nakoy kaila na kanang kasal na sila pero ang bayi ang kanang work. So, wala ka kabalo sa future. What if ikaw laki ka pero wala ka kabalo sa household chores kay lagi nagsalig ka nga bayi ang magbuhat ato tanan. So, I know my example is so shallow, but I believe that small things matters the most. Ethnic minorities. According to Roger Plan 2002, there are approximately 150 ethnic groups in the Philippines. They are concentrated in Cordillera region. So these are Isnig, Kalinga, and Ifugao. They are dependent on agricultural survival. Southernmost islands of Luzon, we have Mangyan of Mindoro and Tagbanwa in Palawan. So in Visayas, we have Solod and Ati people of Negros, and in Mindanao we have Badjaos, Maranaos, and Samals. I remember the report of, I don't remember the group, but katong naay nag-comment na kanang they made fun sa katunga specific ethnic kay katong gabahag man ata to, pero kato siya, it is already a form of discrimination. If we want to be respected, we must respect them also, and we must respect their culture. We have a person with disabilities. According to United Nations, approximately 650 million people, or about 10% of the world's population, live with disabilities. So they state that persons with disabilities are more likely victims of discrimination, violence, and rape because they have less access to the police. United Nations Convention of the Right of Persons with Disabilities states that persons with disabilities have the right to the same fundamental, civil, and political rights as other human beings because they're also human beings pero nalang sila defect pero tawala dyan sila. So in Philippines, we have Republic Acts to protect women's, ethnic minorities, and persons with disabilities. RA 9710 is made to eliminate discrimination through the recognition, protection, fulfillment, and promotion of the rights of Filipino women. RA 8371 is made to protect and promote the rights of cultural communities and indigenous people. RA 7277 is made for providing for the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of disabled person.
Global inequity or global inequality. It refers to the extreme differences in living standards around the world. While some countries have effective and efficient access to economic resources, education, and healthcare, others have limited access to even the most basic necessities of life. This inequality is a predictor of the kind of life that future generations will have. Despite the fact that prominent individuals and worldwide leaders have spoken out against injustice, there is still a huge disparity between the rich, middle class, and impoverished people around the world. This is something that not only hinders global growth and progress, but also demoralizes people.
Poverty is a worldwide phenomenon. However, what it means to be poor is different from one country to another. The following websites are great research materials for exploring poverty on a global scale. The information and activities on these sites will help in understanding different levels of poverty along with its causes, restraints, and future projections. Furthermore, the following sites will also allow a glimpse into what can be done in order to provide feasible solutions to the problem of poverty. The poverty line. A body of work that explores the question of what it means to be poor within the context of a particular country. The site compares choices that people living among the poverty line make. It contains comparisons from 17 countries across 6 continents. In pictures, Manila's slum life. A look into Manila's urban poor and how they deal with the fact that they are living within the poverty line. There are photographs on this website that tell the story of how the problem of poverty plagues the people living in a mega city. The Hunger Project. Facts about hunger and poverty. The Hunger Project, or also known as THP, is a global non-profit strategic organization committed to sustainable end of world hunger. In Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, THP seeks to end hunger and poverty by empowering people to lead lives of self-reliance, meet their own basic needs, and build better futures for their children. 11 facts about global poverty. DoSomething.org is the largest not-for-profit organization for young people and social change in the USA. The organization spearheads national campaigns so that 13 to 25-year-olds can make an impact without ever needing money, another adult, or a car. Teach UNICEF Media. Teach UNICEF is a portfolio of free global education resources. The lesson plans, stories, and multimedia cover topics found in the site range from the Millennium Development Goals to water and sanitation. The mission of the site is to support and create well-informed global citizens who understand interconnectedness, respect and value diversity, have ability to change injustice and inequities, and take action in personally meaningful ways.